Supreme Court overruling Trump's tariffs here has massive implications for the equity markets, possibly enough to be considered a game changer. It's Friday, February 20th, and we've got a wild day to recap, and we'll talk about that, as well as the implications for next week for the S&P, NASDAQ, and broader indices. Let's get it right into it here. So this morning, if you guys caught the morning video, we talked about PCE. So that was on Carnivore Trades for the live pre-market session. We also did the intraday short. We talked about PCE this morning. And yes, we kind of knew about the Supreme Court stuff, but I did not think it was going to do this type of a move here. One, the last two times they went with this, Supreme Court just kind of punted, basically. And additionally, today was Options X for the month of February. Big expiry, I don't know, 2 point something trillion in premium expiring. It's very rare that you get a trend day in the markets. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's basically what we got. You did have a lot of volatility in that, but from low to high, I mean, it's like 1% here, and the S&P finished up 72 basis points. But let's just dive into it. So we talked about this morning. Members got in this, in our Discord here, but we talked about this level in the free, live video. 68.45 if 61 to 64 doesn't hold. And we went down there, kissed it, and we got a nice rebound off of that. That triggered longs. And this morning, huge move. So they overturned tariffs here. And what I find very interesting, I'll dive into this, the implications, the headline itself. I got a lot of charts to show you here. This is a bit of a deep dive here today. Watch all the way to the end because there's a lot of stuff we're going to unpack, and there's heavy implications here. But I said, as long as 68.76 holds on any retest, it'll be a buy the dip regime for the rest of the day. And that's what happened, right? So I'm cleaning these lines up for you right there. Went down, it held, it spiked it a little bit, held, and we rallied back up close to the highs of the day. Couple of things here. We didn't put any air in, and the air that we kind of put in, we back tested. So bulls don't really have to back test anything here if they don't want to Monday. There is still the hanging carrot there. Maybe carrot's a bad word, but it's hanging over the market, which Iran, right? And now Trump is saying that he might just bomb them as opposed to invade, but that could happen over the weekend. So there's that too. But before we get into the levels and how this really impacts the market here, there's one thing I really noticed, and I know I'm probably going to get people who disagree with me on this, and that's fine, but I do know from memory that there was a lot of talk a few weeks ago, a month ago, when they were originally talking about doing this, the Supreme Court that is, that this was going to basically crash the market, right? I think it was like Jan OpEx and even maybe DSOPEX, I'm not sure, but obviously that didn't happen. And why that matters is because if this was a bearish headline and we rallied on it, that's exactly like the hallmark of a bull market, right? Shaking off bad news. Now, you might say, well, Aaron, what are you talking about? Cheap trade is good for corporations. Yes, it is, but I think the bear argument there is that if you spent, hundreds of billions of dollars over the last 11 and a half months, and now that all that has gone to waste, that's obviously wasteful, and that's a bad thing. None of that matters, though, right? It doesn't matter if it's bullish or bearish. What matters is the market rallied on it, and it back tested multiple times. And more importantly, the level that we've been talking about extensively here as a big line in the sand over the last 7 days, going back to last Thursday, 8 days really, 6895. We're looking at hourly ES here, and we closed above that here. So we have not been able to do that all week. We tried to rally it. I said it would squeeze if we got above that, and you got 30 points very quickly. Last Wednesday, failed, back tested, failed. Bears passed the back test rather. Tried this morning, London Open slammed, but now 1, 2, 3 back tests here, and even the 15-minute, we had that engulfing. They hit it again, and then they popped off of that. So we closed above that. So that does give me an upside bias to, again, this is a level I was kind of looking for us to get to earlier this week. We didn't get there, but 69, no, let's get rid of those. Right around here, 6955 area. That's where it broke down, right? That was your prior range. It broke through there. So that's where I think it wants to back test. Barring a situation where bombs fly over the weekend, and you even got this like 65, 65, a 786 above that. But barring a situation like that, I think it just looks to me like it wants to do that. Close the eyes today. They tried bear rating it twice, and we flagged into the close. So I think that's at least your short-term target here. If bombs fly, the dip you should buy. I think that's the saying. Again, I'm going to go back to this here. The market's really well hedged. The VIX here was down 5.6, but VVIX here down 2.65. So they're still holding on to hedges right now. I talked about this in the morning video. February 19th, just 8.7 put call. 1.01 the day before. There's 2 days. 0.98. And we got to go back to Friday. 0.88. 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0.94. 6. 1.1. So 5 out of the last 6 sessions, we've been at a 0.94 or above a 0.1, or excuse me, 1.0. The market's hedged, right? So I think if we get something like this, some invasion, something like that, it's probably not going to cause a crash. I've talked about this also very extensively. They're not going to just give you this dump at the same exact time, the same exact pattern 2 years in a row. The market's very well hedged here. Now, before you start saying stuff, I'm not saying the market can't go down. The market can always go down. Maybe we go to 6,500. But I just don't think that there's going to be any sort of tail past that. More importantly, this is probably the most important thing, actually. Let me get over here. We talked about this last week. This will update a little bit. I have the actual updates in front of me. This chart hasn't updated, but you'll just have to take my word for it. It was basically flat on the NASDAQ, although I think retail went short a little bit more this week. But again, banks, they've been buying this for a reason here. And on ES, banks bought, right? Hedge funds started to close out longs. So that's a positive. Another positive here, the tariff refunds, that's down the line. But what I notice here, hat tip to Craig, rotation into growth value, right? XLP divided by XLK into resistance, IWM, QQQ into resistance, and there's the COTs there with the Russell, as you can see. And again, going up here, last couple of days, QQQ, bright green line, IWM, and the Dow. The Qs are starting to see some outperformance here. Notice that this morning, right? Look at the structure here. There's NQ, just past a 50% retrace. And ES, it went all the way to a 618. So there's money flow here. IGV, we told you this would be pinned for 2 weeks down in this range. Said that right down here. That's where it is. If this starts to rally, if Microsoft starts to rally, NVIDIA could crap out on earnings. Microsoft can make up for that. Remember, Microsoft, yes, historically was a slow mover, but the beta lately has been pretty high on this. So if that's the case, what I'm trying to say here is that, you retest this line here and get above that and you confirm a higher high on the NQ, I think a lot of people are going to be in a lot of trouble. So, we broke some key levels here. Someone actually pointed out in our Discord here, by the way, again, sale, 60% off first month, 30% off swing trades first month. That is through next Friday. But yeah, we closed actually technically a penny above last week's open. And we defended the weekly 20. QQQ never closed below that low tail there, and we closed above last week's open there. So just some minor details here we're noticing. And who knows? Maybe maybe we just dump out now that OPEX is over. I know that's the thing, but it's not always so cut and dry. Yeah, you could make a case you got a bear here, bear inside, but it's inside of the green, right? So even though it's OPEX, this is really probably the only OPEX day you're ever going to see me say, like, there's a lot of implications that happened here. If you recall, again, telling you to watch those live streams, we sniffed this out. I said gold is, gold's not selling off on PCE. It dipped right there and then it rallied. Dipped on tariffs and then rallied. Silver, new highs of the day. We've officially, changed momentum here. Closing the week above the 50. Little inverse head and shoulder there too. Why am I pointing that out? Well, it's positively correlated with stocks. And again, I speculated, when we had that big sell 2 Thursdays ago, a lot of that was precious metals, margin selling spilling over. So watch the Russell, watch XLP. If this is topped out and XLK and IGV start to perk up, that could be the new trade here. Transport's up 1.78. TLT, not bad. I mean, not bad dip buy, right? So it didn't get back to where it was before, but I mean, it held the 100 MA clear and, clear and obvious, right? So this could just flag here and then go higher. That's ZB there. XHB hung in there. IYR hung in there too. This might be on breakout. Keeping a close eye on that. XLF, I want to see that clear the 200 and really like 53.10. I know this has been weak, but KRE's been strong, so I can't argue with the performance here. Broker dealers bouncing. Oil's been staying strong. It did back off a little bit today, but they're not. Unless there's inside info, it's not going to sell off in front of the weekend with this geopolitical stuff that's going on. So this chart still looks okay. XLE backed off a little bit today. Again, watch this. XLE, XOP, transports, right? Healthcare. Dow stocks, anything that has been working lately. Stops working and tech starts bidding. That's your sign. OIH still strong. Dollar all over the map today. 98 held. Talked about gold and silver. Platinum had a good day too. And palladium still in the range here, but that's starting to perk up. And copper had a good day as well. Back above the 50. So still tight there too. All right, lastly, Bitcoin. And again, this was something I noticed this morning too. It wasn't really dumping that hard. Use my day trading Bitcoin here, but so it sold off in PC and then bottomed immediately, and it never really returned down to the lows. Like it just put in higher lows all day. So Bitcoin even held up. Still got to clear this stupid line here. But it is tightened up a little bit on the daily. That's ready for some volatility soon. We'll see what we got next week. Does OPEX open the can of worms? We'll see, but the longer nothing happens, right? We talked about 600 QQQ. They tried to break it for 2 weeks. The longer nothing happens, the longer these levels hold, the more those hedges decay. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, we'll wrap it up here. You guys take care. Don't forget to come find me on carnivoretrades.com. We'll see you guys all next week.